Oh look, a new player launches StarCraft 2, he's so excited to play. He gets matched against a Protoss player and oh no, he's making Skytoss. Zerg player is trying really hard, but it's in vain. He gets completely destroyed and deletes StarCraft 2, while Protoss player enjoys his easy MMR points. There is one thing that really pisses off all casual players in StarCraft 2. This army composition is almost undefeatable in most leagues below Grandmaster. Today we'll talk about Skytoss, the strongest composition of Protoss air units, and how and why we got to the current stage, which annoys so many people. But first, let's start with a definition. Skytoss usually refers to a 200 supply of mostly air units, carriers, some Void Rays, Tempests, and a mothership, accompanied by Archons or High Templars for extra splash damage. In Legacy of the Void, this army composition is often called a Death Ball, and it's the ultimate force that the Protoss race can gather. While most professional players can deal with that due to their high speed and microcontrol, such composition creates a plethora of problems for most casual players. But it wasn't always the case. Back in Wings of Liberty, Skytoss was already available as an option for your army composition. However, most Protoss players would avoid massing such armies except for rare occasions. Since most Sky units are best used against Zerg race, there was no room for them in the balanced meta. Zerg players had a great combo with Infestor's Fungal Growth and Infested Terrans, making short work of Interceptors and Carriers. Despite these limitations, some Protoss players were still trying to find a place for this army composition. Even though it was quite rare, you could still catch an amazing late game. There were several examples of this, although it wasn't a proper Skytoss.
He needs to get those in there.
He gunned down the Archons before it was time.
And the Void Rays come out. And Archon goes in. Another Archon goes in. Get in there. Oh my God, what are we seeing? Side Star. This is madness.
Oh my God,
is he actually going to kill this army? Oh, the PCs are all going down. I can't believe what I just saw.
So the developers were really eager to buff Skytoss and make it somewhat more useful as a late game choice. To deal with most massive late game units, Protoss race got new tools, including Tempests and Oracles. And in Heart of the Swarm, Zerg race no longer had instant fungals and the Zerg late game was nerfed, which allows Protoss players to experiment with new strategies. At the same time, Skytoss appeared more often in team games, which was kinda annoying to be honest.
Well, toss air is pretty good. Now we know. Look at that. Everything's dead. Everything is dead. Are you kidding me? Fuck you, David Kim.
And while it was still hard to get carriers, now you could play Void Rays in the mid game, at least in PvZ matchup. Due to the introduction of Mothership Core, you could now defend your bases more efficiently. Naniwa was amongst the pioneers of the new Void Ray Sentry strategy.
Almost nothing on the ground, 10 Queens, 15 Hydras, 5 Roaches, units are gonna keep on streaming in. Both players reinforcing very close to the fight. Oh, nice force fields.
Nice force fields here from Naniwa, but he's got 10 Void Rays and currently remains with 10 Void Rays alive. Microing very well, he's got a little amount of units, but they're dealing a lot of damage. The supply is closing up. Remember that at the moment, it's 127 to 149. Life has another mana hatchery down. The Void Rays have been able to keep alive throughout all of this. Great micro from Naniwa, and he stays alive for now, picking off units after units, trading Zealots for units here. One Void Ray gets picked off, but 9 of them still survive. Naniwa's going for it here. It's a lot of Queens, a lot of Hydralists. Is he going to be able to do it if he continues to reinforce? Maybe.
Wow, and that micro on the Void Ray is always pulling those red ones back. Can Naniwa hold again, like he did before?
Oh my God! Oh my God! Another cancelled mana hatchery! How the hell? Naniwa with micro, absolutely legendary micro with these Void Rays, keeping them alive. They're all...
Skytoss was becoming better and better, but it was still not the best option due to many other reasons. Terran race had Marines with high DPS, Protoss had Blinkstalkers, and Zerg race could now efficiently besiege you with new swarm hosts. So once again, this composition was a rare guest in professional matches. But everything changed with Legacy of the Void. Since all races got new tools to deal with Sky units, such as Viper for example, now it was safe to buff the carriers, which remained untouched for so many years. The time of the Golden Armada has finally come. After a series of patches, Carrier became the ultimate weapon of the Protoss race. You could now build them quicker, and the interceptor's cost was significantly decreased, making most of the trades super efficient. These changes allowed a lot of new strategies, including even the carrier rushes in the mid-game. While these changes finally enabled the Protoss race to be really good in the late game, especially in PvZ matchup, they also broke the balance in many aspects. There were a lot of bad consequences. If previously late game was revolving around ground units and microcontrol with disruptors and lurkers, now any Zerg player would be forced to camp behind a solid spore line and use Vipers to abduct the Skytoss. From a rather dynamic matchup, we got ourselves a slogfest. To make things even worse, these changes didn't really fix the late game issue. Players like Serral or Raynor would easily chip away at carriers and Tempests with their Vipers, while the vast majority of players was struggling on all other skill levels. So it was a controversial balance update. While it brought some good mid and late game compositions, it didn't really fix the issue at the very top level, and only brought pain and dissatisfaction for other leagues.
Oh no!
Why you bullying me?
Stop it. Get some help.
With time, people started adapting and learned how to counter Skytoss players early on, but the late game problem was still relevant, and the Protoss race could hardly win any tournaments in the past couple of years. And there was still one almost useless unit. Void Rays simply had no place in the balanced meta. So the change was made once again, and new Void Rays became faster and cheaper, which in turn made them viable in the mid game. But this patch basically created two cancerous strategies that would piss off most players on the ladder. Now, most PvZ games had to start with Void Rays, because it was one of the few Protoss openings that was easy to execute, and it was also really strong against even skillful Zerg players. Due to this new change, it was easier to transition into mid-game, and it was hard to lose to most all-in attacks. While it sounds good on paper, in practice there was a small problem.
They're void rays, gotta mess up my void rays. Everybody's telling Bliss and nerf them. Void rays, messing up my void rays. Everybody's telling Bliss to please nerf them. Fully charged. Fully charged. Win. Looking forward to your G.
Basically, all PvZ games split it into two directions. Zerg players couldn't execute most of their timing attacks because of Void Rays were too cost efficient now, and they forced Zerg to defend with Mass Queens, Hydras and Spores. Since it takes quite some resources, Zerg players were forced to defend most of the time until they reached the late game, and there we get back to our slogfest with lines of Spores, Vipers and other aspects of it. Alternatively, Zerg players could go for a really bold all-in attack. Usually that would be so-called German taxi, a build order invented and explained by German player Lambo. This includes dropping your queens with overlords and supporting your queen army with links. The aim was to destroy the Protoss player before he gets his critical mass of Void Rays. But there is more to it. Remember the annoying cannon rushes and batteries? Now you could legitimately do that with Void Rays instead of Immortals, and this was particularly painful for Terran and Protoss players since many of their units and buildings receive extra damage from Void Rays. Now let's get back to the highest pro level, and pretty much nothing changed there. Protoss players were still struggling to win tournaments because the real issue remained unchanged. The late game was too strong for the Zerg race, providing that your opponent knows how to play that stage and he or she is also capable of executing it to the fullest potential. Even though you can count such Zerg players with only your fingers of your one hand, it was still an issue for many reasons. So once again the real problem wasn't solved, while all the burden of annoying strategies fell on the shoulders of casual players. It was the greatest exodus of Zerg race throughout the history of StarCraft 2, and it was the time when Protoss race would conquer the majority of seats in the Grandmaster League.
Hey, you wanna see something cool?
This patch lasted for a year and a half, and Void Rays, after all, once again fell from grace and are rarely used nowadays. But as obvious as it sounds, the late game issue wasn't fixed, and only the latest patch can make a difference. Finally, after so many years of StarCraft 2, Viper, the core late game unit, is being nerfed. Now it will have a delay after one single abduct, making it less efficient and more likely to be neutralized during engagements on the very top level. While the patch overall doesn't seem like something that actually nerfs pro Zerg players, it does bring a lot of positive changes. Perhaps the first time in StarCraft 2 history, the patch is fixing both professional and also casual issues of the game. Now it's easier to target carriers with the priority change, Ultra Risks and Hydras also got stronger, but at the same time, creep spread is significantly nerfed and late game Vipers aren't as efficient as they used to be. This means that the Zerg race gets buffed on a more casual level and nerfed on a high level. And while the public opinion is certain that Zerg race got better, many pro players, including these important names, think that the patch is actually somewhat good for other races too. Finally, it seems like we have come to some sort of equilibrium with Skytoss. While it should remain strong, it won't be so bad in lower leagues, and Zerg late game shouldn't be that much of an issue anymore. But we'll see that live during IM Katowice. What are your thoughts about Skytoss and how would you change that if you could? Write your opinion in the comments and don't forget to check out more videos about poor balance decisions. And as usual, have a nice day and see you next time.